This is Hunt Nebraska, the official podcast for insight into Nebraska's hunting and shooting sports community. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, our space for sharing stories, information, tips, and techniques. Now, Hunt Nebraska.
And a big welcome back to everybody out there in outdoor nation land. This is Hunt Nebraska. Thanks for joining us today and taking us along for the ride or into work or wherever you might be listening to us or watching us. We got the regular crew in here. Several of the folks from the regular crew: Jeff Rawlinson, Game and Parks, Michael Addison, National Wild Turkey Federation, Kyle Gaston, Hunter Ed coordinator for Nebraska here, and me also, Hershy, with Nebraska Game and Parks. And we are here to try to, well, we can't completely get away from the spring turkey season. We're not going to talk mostly about the spring turkey season because Michael and I already talked about this. We need to have something else out there. But how is the spring turkey season going?
I'll use the word I used yesterday, perplexing.
That sounds like turkey season. That sounds like turkey hunting, chasing gobblers. And you've got a couple of states under your belt now to say that, too.
Yeah. No, the Nebraska turkeys have been more cooperative.
They usually are.
Than the Missouri turkeys.
They're gentlemen.
It's just Nebraska turkeys don't like pinwheels, if it wasn't for pinwheels.
I don't think we can use what little data you have to make any conclusions.
You just chose wrong colors
Yep.
or wrong wind placement.
Wrong colors.
It's fine.
The placement was shoddy at best. No decoys.
Man,
I mean, it wasn't done correctly.
It's a harsh
Sounds like
critique.
Jeff's ready to tackle that challenge.
Yeah,
Folks,
it was done incorrectly.
I recall him last week grabbing a pinwheel and heading out of the office. How'd that go?
Never saw a turkey.
Wow.
To measure that against, but the wind was howling so bad.
maybe that's related.
The wind was howling so bad, and that pinwheel was I had it set right, and it was just flying. But it was Hershy. Those pinwheels, they're cheap. And here's the problem with the cheap pinwheels: is that the head part is bouncing back and forth. So when it's real windy, you're getting this, and I'm like, well, no one ever
sounds
said
like
about
drumming.
I think you
It's not
get
good. It's not
the
good.
noise to begin with, but prior to that, you'd seen turkeys on your hunts this season, right?
Oh yeah,
Without pinwheels. That's interesting.
I've got turkeys. I got pictures of turkeys.
But when you use the pinwheels, they weren't even in the same farm.
There you go.
Much
That
less
Tom
the same
came right
kind.
in. I mean, I got pictures of
there
turkeys.
you go.
There's turkeys.
Oh, look at that.
There's
Where's
always
that from?
turkeys, huh?
Where's that from?
From a field.
Well,
Outside the blind. You can see the blind in the picture, couldn't you? It's right outside the blind.
We're looking for more of the story.
There's always stories. I mean, you got plenty of stories.
So you got a turkey?
Huh? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I've seen a lot of turkeys.
No, that's what we're asking, though.
No, I'm just.
I would
throwing it
hope
out
that
there.
if it's that close, he got it.
Was that with a pinwheel?
No pinwheel.
No pinwheel. Interesting.
Yeah.
But that
More common
particular
trend
bird,
forming
that
here.
particular bird came into my hen and Jake decoys, and as soon as he got about 60 yards, he skirted that big time. And I mean, he started walking
Well,
fast.
that seemed like really close. You said
Well,
there.
he come
you
back.
can see the edge. Oh, he came back.
And this is where, just normal calling, if all you're doing is yelping and all that, just sometimes won't cut it, because this one went away, and then
Okay.
I had to do the old and his head pops up, and all of a sudden he's right at the fence line, gonna go into the fence and leave, and he turns around and he comes right back up to chew out whoever was making those noises.
And what decoy
so,
did he make? Or did he not make it to a decoy?
I didn't make it to a decoy.
Didn't make it to a decoy.
But I can tell you this: I've seen plenty of turkeys, and quite a few from afar. No jakes. Still haven't had a jake. come in.
Wow. See, I've seen the opposite.
Yeah. Still haven't had a
I'm
jake. come
with
in.
Hershey on this one. Spin Jakes.
And it's kind of interesting. We've talked to folks that have seen a bunch, and we've talked to folks that, like you said, Jeff, our good friend Daryl Bauer from the Fisheries Division says he really hadn't seen a jake either. Mm-hmm. And one of our more recent hunts, which has been a while, 6 jakes came just piling out into the decoys real quick. So that is interesting. Well, congratulations. I don't know. You're not telling us who was behind the trigger or the arrow.
No.
So we'll just have to say it. But a bird taken, perhaps. But it
I'm
seems
not
like
saying
without a pinwheel.
I'm not
Without,
saying that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
how that
interesting.
works.
That is interesting. Another data
Very
point.
interesting.
Don't hunt and tell.
But the fun thing, folks, is if you haven't checked it out, go a podcast or two back where we do the Turkey Impossible mission, where we each drew different challenges to try this turkey season. And I think all 4 of us at least tried our challenge once, and Michael's video with the pinwheels is up, and you can make your own call on what might have might have transpired in that. We're working on mine, which was box call only. Kyle, you weren't here for the drawing, so you did it off microphone, and you did which one did you draw?
I was able to draw the public land hunting.
Land hunting, and you've been out there to do that. And there may be video of that, some pictures.
We'll go through and see what we can find.
Okay, all right.
There's some video. We'll see.
You haven't done all the editing yet. I get it.
No,
I get it. You like to put music to it. Yeah, no, I get that.
And Jeff, if I remember right, you did the Jake decoy challenge.
Yep. Went out there and did that. Didn't work.
So we'll waiting for the videos and pictures on that one that we can share. But over the next several days, weeks, you'll see some of those challenges. And then Rachel, our shooting sports shooting range coordinator, also drew one. We'll see how she's been doing there. Make sure those are all going to be on YouTube because there's some audio, but for the most part. For most parts. So
what is it about that gets every guy in a room laughing? Just telltale sign right there.
That one doesn't matter with age, does it?
It's a big deal, and the older you get, the bigger deal it is. So,
but Rachel, our shooting sports shooting range coordinator, also drew, and we'll see how that all goes. But most part, that one's going to be on YouTube. To watch. So check that out.
Mine is up there now if you want to check that out. So
there you go. So we'll talk more about turkeys, I'm sure, in the days and weeks ahead, and we'll get the full story out of Jeff perhaps in one of those times. But today we're back in to celebrate Hunter Education one more time. If you've been a listener to the program pretty regularly, you know that this year, 2024, is the 50th anniversary, and we're celebrating the entire year of Hunter Education, as well as the 30th year of bow hunter education here in the state of Nebraska, which is really exciting. And one thing that I think we're doing pretty neat on our Hunt Nebraska Facebook page is we're celebrating these Hunter Ed instructors, and we're getting one out. Michael, how often is it? About once a week or
once
so?
Once a week, yep. Once a week, we're doing a spotlight on different Hunter Ed instructors, how long they've been instructors, some of their favorite memories from teaching, some words of wisdom they have to pass on to the next generation. And it's been pretty cool. We solicited, sending email out to our instructors, getting those stories, and we've gotten a pretty good response out of them so far. So we've got a whole backlog of them to share. We've got them lined up for quite a while. So every Friday at 10 o'clock at the Hunt Nebraska page.
And that's awesome. And I mean, when you ask the men and women that volunteer to make this program happen, it shouldn't shock us that, one, they've already stepped up and say, I want to share my skills, my experience, my knowledge on this sport so that we can help make sure that we're putting safe, ethical, responsible hunters into the field, Kyle. That it shouldn't be a shock to us that they're willing to share a little bit more about why they got into it and how many years they've been serving as well. And it's kind of fun. I got some questions here for you, but I do want to kind of bring a highlight to the one that I believe was last week highlight, Joe Bober from the Omaha area. And this is one interesting thing. His years teaching Hunter Ed. Anyone want to guess how many years?
Oh gosh, Joe!
I have the answer. So
yeah,
I just talked to him the other day. But 50
years of firearm hunter education here in the state of Nebraska, and his teaching years are
probably 51.
50. Yeah, I was going to say
51.
That's really kind of cool because we've got a lot of folks, or some folks. I shouldn't say it's a lot. We do have a lot of dedicated Hunter Ed instructors, but some of them can claim that they actually got started teaching hunter education, or what would become Nebraska hunter education before it was mandatory.
And Joe's one of those guys. We have, it's just the cream of the crop when it comes to hunter ed instructors in Nebraska. But Joe is just a peach of a guy. Doesn't do it justice. I mean, he's somewhat legendary. He's one of the neatest guys you're ever going to run into. He's a get it done kind of guy. You can see, it's funny. A lot of our hunter ed instructors are also very successful in other walks of life. And Joe would certainly be one of those Knights of Columbus, head of the Knights of Columbus there in Omaha, and does a lot for the community. And a lot of our hunter ed instructors, as you will see, are also involved in other aspects of supporting their community. They're not the kind of guys that just kind of disappear at home and you don't hear from them until they come out and teach class. And they're known in their community. They do a lot. They give a lot back. That's just who they are. Yeah, and Joe is probably one of the tops in that category.
Well, and I've learned early on, and Michael and Kyle, you'll get to see this real quick, I'm sure this year. when Joe says something about, hey, we got this event going on and there's going to be a meal, you just show up.
Oh,
Yes, absolutely.
he knows how to put on a meal for big events.
He does. And he'll say, well, but don't you want to know what the menu is? Just like, Joe, I know you've got this handle.
I know it's going to be something to steak-like. I'm not worried.
It's better than my other options.
And what's funny with Joe is, hey, Joe, we got a group of 50 coming in. Can we put a meal together? Not a problem. Joe, we got a group of 50,000 coming in. Can we put a meal? Not a problem. It doesn't matter how many people. He's done big events. He's served a lot of meals over the years, and that group in Omaha, just a very giving group in general. But they do a great job in their community.
Well, and as you mentioned, Jeff, already, I mean, just embodies what a lot of our volunteer instructors are. Hey, how can I help? What can I do to be a part of that? And what can I lead to make this go smoother, which is really, really impressive to say the least. And I know he's involved with the planning committee, right, for the 50th?
Yep. We talk every couple of weeks here and chat all about more what's going on, what needs planned, and we're planning out a big celebration for our instructors and a little bit of education for them too here, celebrating 50 years coming up this fall. And so he's obviously on the food or heading up all the food stuff related. Yeah. I asked him a little bit. He goes, I got it all taken care of. He's pretty much putting me in my place here for the food.
Yeah, he's telling you, I'm already on the next thing. I got that done, kid.
That's already taken care of. But no, we're meet up so he can plan out and lay it all out. But he has it all squared away. And I asked him, before I knew they answered the question, 50 versus 50,000. I said, how much of a leeway do you need heads up for how much food? He goes, if I know 2 days beforehand, I'll have the amount of food for everybody there for then so much. I'm like, okay.
He's got the cows in the backyard. He's just feeding them, ready to go, just waiting for your head count. He'll have it. He'll have them ready to go.
Have you guys ever seen Joe without a smile for longer than about 45 seconds?
Can't imagine.
Nope.
Can't imagine.
I mean, that guy when you see him, he's already smiling.
Well, it's just his attitude.
He's just having fun.
Can we do this? We can do it. I mean, it's just a can-do attitude. And I think that kind of would identify most of our instructors. They're the guys and gals that just, we can make it happen. Yeah, and it kind of emulates a lot of staff. There's a lot of staff in game parks that are very similar to that. I remember some of the staff that in our agency over the years would always joke about, well, heck, we put a man on the moon, didn't we? We ought to be able to handle this, right? Yeah, and so you look at those people and you go, That's pretty cool, and that's kind of who our instructors are. Yeah, we put a man on the moon, didn't we? We can handle this. We can do this, and they're the first people to show up. I mean, they just do, and they make it fun. They don't just show up and do things. There's a lot of camaraderie in that group in Hunter Education. It's a big family. It always has been. I think Dick Turpin probably made it that way when he was the Hunter Ed coordinator. He made it a real team-like, family-like atmosphere, and that's still emulated in the program to this day. You always think about how, when you make an impact, how big that impact can be. The ripple effect sometimes is culture changing, and certainly Dick was a culture changer in the agency here. But we have a lot of instructors who are just part of that awesome team, family-type culture.
Amen. And folks, again, jump on our Hunt Nebraska Facebook page. You're going to see a lot of neat ones that have been taking place. If you haven't already seen them, Paul Leeper, who's one of our go-to mentors in the Last Chance Deer Camp, taking place in central Nebraska each January. We've got some really cool action photos, some wonderful stories on their favorite memories or some of the things that they've learned or why they teach. And we got folks like Tony Morrow's another one that's popping up. I will say that Jason Obermiller, who's been teaching for over 20 years and also been involved in our Archery in the Schools program as an instructor during some of that time as well, just like you said, Jeff, giving back in more than just in one venue, is kind of an interesting photo because I think you get to see his nose and a little bit of his whiskers, and his bow hanging in the tree. So we can tell that, Jason, you're either a lot more artistic than I am, or you're really proud of that bow, or you haven't quite figured out this selfie. Because it looks, he's got to be in a tree stand.
These were self-selected photos from the instructors.
Our instructors are not necessarily good at shooting video or pictures necessarily.
Some of them are great.
Some of them are, some of them aren't. They're good at what they do, but we didn't hire them for their videography work.
There you go. So I've got a question, and this is one that actually got asked to a group of us instructors years ago when we went to a Kansas Hunter Education rendezvous. When Mike Streeter was our statewide hunter education coordinator. We went, and Wayne Doyle at that time, if you remember Wayne, Jeff, from the state
How
of
could
Kansas.
you forget Wayne?
And,
Legendary.
Yeah, exactly. Monica was down there as well. So I'm going to ask the same question they asked us. Do you remember who you learned hunter education from? When you were taking that course, who was your instructor?
Now, that's not fair. And I'm going to tell you why. Because
Oh,
two
that's
people
fair.
in this room took it like a couple years ago. So they probably have a lot better memory than two other people in this room that took it, 40-some years ago, potentially? Mine was 40 years ago. Probably
no, not
40,
yet.
40 years
Not
ago
yet.
to this last March. But go ahead. We'll find out. We'll find out who can remember.
So, well, and that, you bring that up. Also, the delivery options for hunter education have changed in that time. From, it was, when you and I took it, it was, here's how
It
you
was a
get it.
classroom course, and Mom was driving you there twice a week.
And then when you two gentlemen took it, it might have had another option of, well, you can do some of this independently or even online and then come to a field day or something along those lines. Now we've got some other options for certain age groups. So we'll start with Mr. Hunter Ed Coordinator himself right here. Do you remember your Hunter Ed instructor?
I do, and he's actually one of our master instructors for us right now.
Oh, wow.
So, Mike Shop down out of McCook.
Oh,
Yeah,
Good
actually, I
guy.
was just talking to him here just the other day, getting him some stuff for a class he's putting on down there, and I also got to talk to the radio station down there. And right after I got done talking to them, they aired the PSA for the class he was holding at the exact same time. So,
now is he feeling pretty proud that this is a full circle moment?
oh, I got a message pretty quick saying, "So what do I get for a or does that class my master classification
I
for
was gonna
teacher a
say,
new hunter
he
ed
gets every
coordinator?"
incentive award ever made for that one. By God, if you provide a hunter ed coordinator, I think that's above and beyond. I think that's an above and beyond effort for a hunter ed instructor.
So, but yep. So I remember that. I remember the building. I remember going outside and practicing exchanging a shotgun across the fence line, doing all those projects there on the community college campus out there in McCook. So I remember it pretty vividly. I remember sitting there being nervous for the test and everything else. So
You always got to sweat it a little bit. don't you?
bit. Well, when you're 11, 12 years old and they hand you a test, you're,
Oh, yeah,
you're going to
no,
be nervous no matter what.
That test is the difference between going hunting this next weekend or not. And so it's a pretty big test, right? It's the test of your life. There's not a college test that you will take that has you sweating like that hunter ed test, because that's
No, I
important.
agree.
That's important.
I agree, because it has ramifications, right?
Oh,
Yes.
my,
And
direct
it's
ramifications.
Immediate,
Yeah.
unlike some of those things you take in other tests you take in middle school. And I got to say, before the class, usually the most commonly asked question that you probably hear, Kyle, is when's the next hunter ed class coming? When's a hunter ed class coming to my area? It's kind of a variation of that. After class, it's when will I get my card? How do I get my card? But during the actual hunter ed class, one of the most commonly asked questions in my experience from the students, regardless of age, is, well, how good do I have to do on this test? What's this minimum score I need to get on this test? And I had some great hunter ed mentors throughout life that showed me early on, you're going to do fine. You're going to do fine. You will probably ace this test. Just pay attention, use your manual, and you'll probably ace it. Yeah. But what's the worst? What's the most I can miss and still pass? But you're right, Jeff. I had some individuals that just shocked how well they did on that hunter ed test, because it was important to them, and they studied probably a little bit more than they did for math or science that year. In fact,
A
shocked
little
the
easier
parents
to
when
study for something you want to study on. Though,
Yeah.
Well,
too.
it is a
Exactly.
lot more fun to study for a hunter ed test than any other test out there. But I agree with what we said earlier. It's that ramifications, right? If I don't pass this test, Dad says I don't get to go hunting.
Yeah.
I got that's kind of an important deal, right?
State of
I gotta go out
Nebraska
there.
This one here, I just failed a
Good
class. I might have to repeat 4th grade, 5th grade. That's no big deal. But the hunting part, my gosh.
Well, and you get those parents every once in a while, especially on the last day of session or something like that. You get that comment from, man, I don't know what you did, but I wish they would study this hard for school tests, because they were hitting that book and doing those worksheets or whatever it might be. All right, Michael, do you remember your hunter ed instructor's name?
No, I don't.
Really?
Because I took hunter ed and I didn't take it in my hometown. I think I took it in a town that was 30, 40 miles over. So not really somebody I'd see around anytime or anything like that. And it was just it was like a 1 day, 10 hour class, I think is what it was. Just you went in early that morning, got out that evening, took the class, did your test all in 1 day and out the door. So, I really don't remember. I remember certain parts of it. I remember seeing, they talk about barrel obstructions and seeing the blown up shotgun. Saw that. There was a video they showed about, safe muzzle direction. This, walking down a hill, kid slips and falls, and his .22 rifle goes off, and he hits the friend that he's hunting with.
Oh, Sweet Sunday's Gone. That was a video. That was a classic.
Yep.
That we
I remember
showed in
watching
forever.
that one.
Jeff, do you recall when that came out, the controversy
Yes.
that was going on?
Yes. And I want to say it's probably the late 70s maybe then that one came out. Mid 70s. But, it was a somewhat graphically disturbing video. And I know a lot of people didn't like that. It's one though that, I hate to use something like that because it wasn't overly. I mean, in today's terms, it wasn't graphically. It was just the content of it. A buddy shooting his friend, whatnot, but I think I always showed it in my Hunter Ed classes, and I think the biggest issue for me was it was an eye opener, and it got those kids to sometimes the kids you just kind of gotta. Jar them in the head. This is serious. This is serious. You got to think about this. And it was one of those that when there was never a time that I turned that video off. Now I'm going to date myself, but this was a 35 millimeter
reel to reel.
So I remember the video going off and beep, but there was never a time that I showed that video that afterwards everybody just went back to talking and goofing. It was dead silence. And you could tell you'd reached a bunch of kids and you kind of just, weren't trying to rattle them hard, but you just rattled them a little bit. It's like, these things have happened. They don't happen. They're pretty darn rare, but this is why we're here. And there was some controversy.
Yep. That's how I recall it, was dead silence after that video was shown.
Yeah.
So I remember bits and pieces of my Hunter Ed class I took, but again, it wasn't like with Kyle. It wasn't where I was taking it, and it was somebody in the community that I probably see around later, or somebody that I may have personally known beforehand. It was a different town over where I needed, because that was the soonest available one, and it was close enough that we could go and take it and just jump on it. Yep.
You bet, Jeff. You brought up the videos, and I think they stood the test for quite a while. Now we've changed them within the last bunch of years, and by that last decade or so. But you're right. I always remember firearm safety in the hunter's path.
Yep.
Shoot, don't shoot. There was one
shoot two.
That they call survival. We didn't use it in Hunter Ed. We use it in some other things as well. The one you were talking about is now titled The Last Shot. But I remember even as an instructor getting training, it just like, here, use the hunter path here to introduce this topic. Firearm safety in the hunter, you can introduce this topic. And then when we got to that, The Last Shot, it was, and if you choose to use this, here's some things to think about type thing. It was even at that point when I was getting trained as an instructor, it was still causing some questions, because you're right, it hit home.
Which was the video, and this is terrible, I should know this, that would go through a scenario, and then the Alan Madison would come out and Bob was only 47 years old the day that he took that fateful trip out to the field, and Bob, what was that? Which one?
Firearm safety in the hunter.
Firearm safety in the hunter.
Because it started with the turkey hunting.
Yes, and
episode.
That was, again, I really liked that video because they were all real world scenarios that have come out of Hunter Education and in the field, and he kind of painted a picture that these things can happen. Yep. I mean, you got to use your head. These things can. So I think that those videos and the ones we have today are certainly a little bit more modern than the ones we've had in the past. But I think all the videos we're using are just designed to get people's attention and let them know, here's what can happen, here's what has happened. And because of Hunter Education, they're much more rare today. But that's why we talk about these incidences. We don't want them to happen again.
All right, Jeff, do you remember your instructor?
Jack McGorian.
Jack
McGorian. I'll never forget it. He had a huge impact on my life. Now, I wouldn't say that, he was an older gentleman at the time. Mm-hmm. And, I would say maybe just a little bit, gruff about, things. There wasn't a lot of laughing and going on in the class. but he knew how to drive home firearm safety handling points. And my dad was in the military and for a number of years, and he instilled a lot of firearm safety. We'd go out on the weekends and go shooting, and that was our claim to fame. And my dad instilled a lot of firearm safety on me, and there was no room for error when it came to my dad when it came to firearms. And so you all go. I'm a jokester. I goof around. I joke around. And you saw a kid who was just dead serious when we'd go shooting because there was no room for error. And so when I came to that class, I had a lot of the safety background already. However, Jack was, and he had several other instructors. I don't remember their names, but Jack was the lead instructor, and he ran a very, we're gonna talk about these. We're gonna have a video. We're gonna discuss it. Move on. Very organized class, and but firearm safety. We did shooting as part of our class, which was one of the few at the time that were doing shooting because it was probably 82, 83, somewhere, 83, 84. Anyway, and I remember thinking, man, we're not screwing around here. This is, and it was dead serious, and I was okay with that. But when he passed away. He was an air gun. He did air gun repairs on the side. That was one of his side hustles.
Air guns.
Yeah, he had Megorian air guns, and when he passed, I remember writing his wife a letter, and because he did have a pretty good impact on my life. Obviously, the Hunter Ed class, I think, always has an impact on every kid's life, and I think our instructors, I always try to remind them of that. It's not lost on most of our instructors, I would say, but I always remind them of that the impact you have. These kids will never forget the class. They may forget your name. But you never forgot the class.
No.
Yeah.
Never forgot the class.
And how many kids can say that? I go through a list of teachers. I can't remember a day in their class. I can't remember hardly anything about them.
Yes.
But
what was the principal's name though?
The
couch sat there.
Yeah. All I know is the principal had a desk here, and I had a satellite desk over here, and I got sent to it a lot. And I can tell you right now, it was just kind of like, hey, Jeff, come on in, have a seat. What'd you do? And there was nobody else that had a desk in there. I felt pretty special.
Jeff, go to your office.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. And then by 8th grade, they quit doing that. But anyway, most kids will not forget that Hunter Ed class. So.
I can't remember that. I'll be in my office.
Or getting sent to the principal's office so many times that they had to put a special desk in there for me. And it was just another desk, but they'd set it in. I always thought it was pretty going above and beyond to actually share your office with a student who's unruly, right? And so when I'd get there, they always had something for me to do, of course, but that was probably like 6th grade or something. I just remember thinking, I run this place.
I made it.
I
made it.
I run this
Here
place. Yeah. There's a principal, then there's me, and we have a secretary.
We have a secretary.
And I think there was times, Debbie was her name. I remember her name. And I think there was times, because we kind of butted heads a few times. I think there was times she probably felt like I did feel like, she worked for both of us there in the office.
Oh, now we're getting off track. But
Yeah.
I'm sure when you made it high school, they could say, all right, we can reduce our ruler budget for the nuns. All right.
Sister Jude Mary, that's who it was.
Oh, boy. All right.
Yep.
Mine, I remember distinctly, everybody called him Audie. That was his last name. Never did learn his first name. I'd have to look it up. Us kids had to call him Mr. Audie. He also not only taught Hunter Ed, but I remember that name prior to because he owned the gun shop in town, which was right down the place where it ended up being my first job, and one of my favorite, well, all the kids' favorite, the ice cream store was just right across the street from it. So you always see Audie's guns there, and you always wondered what was in that big white building. And then when you finally were old enough to get into it, because he wasn't letting you in unless you've been through Hunter Ed and were buying something. But didn't know that until I showed up for class for Hunter Ed. And like I've probably relayed the story several times already, I had an interest in hunting for no reason that you will find on any surveys nowadays. When we interview hunters and why they start, I'm probably the only one that has it. as the main reason. But my dad, being the wise man that he was, said you can't go hunting, just like you said, Jeff, until you pass Hunter Ed. And at that time, I think he kind of put that out there, just like, this kid's never going to remember Hunter Ed. Last week, he wanted to start a zoo in our backyard. This week, he wants to be a hunter. So we'll just we'll do that. But I did when that blaze orange flyer sat in the school right there in the hallway. I saw that, remembered it, and got signed up for it. And little did I know that when I walked in there that Mr. Oddie was going to be the instructor. So now we've got a local celebrity to all the kids because this guy sells guns. Right there teaching the class. And I remember helping out with the reel-to-reel videos and going through that, which, again, we've seen it all, Jeff. Reels, reel-to-reel, VHS tapes. We thought we made it. DVDs, we're thinking, man, the shipping's going to get a lot easier now. And now, a lot of them can be found online or downloaded type
download
stuff.
a code and they've got a video.
So, which is
now,
pretty cool.
And why is it, Hershey, that you were so excited to start taking Hunter Ed and go hunting?
Get out of school.
Get out of school. They let kids out of school in Iowa to go hunting.
It was an excused absence the week of deer season.
Man,
you got 1 week
We need
off.
to implement that right away.
In third grade, right around
Teachers
fourth
would
grade.
approve.
I think they would.
There are certain schools in Missouri where that is also the case, but I did not go to one of them.
There you go. And
so it needs to be statewide. It needs to be mandatory.
It does. It does. And in third, fourth grade, I was always thinking of ways to get out of school. And hunting gave me that avenue, and I was in.
Yeah.
But you had to be a deer hunter, and I wasn't a deer hunter for at least 2 or 3 years after I got my Hunter Ed class, because when my dad was growing up, deer weren't a thing. You didn't get to hunt deer. You got to hunt pheasants and rabbits and quail and things like that. And I hadn't heard a pheasant. How do you spell that? So anyway, it was a lot of fun. I also then went back and bought my first gun from Mr. Oddie. And then he allowed me to call him Oddie after that. It was a 22 long rifle, and then we got a shotgun or two from him as well that he worked on, which was cool. Back then, gun shops also meant the guy behind the counter was a gunsmith, and they could work on things like triggers and safeties and change. I had to have a stock cut down for me on one of my first shotguns, that type of stuff. But it also meant pretty cool things in Hunter Ed class. He was able to bring examples of that exploded barrel and different types of gun actions and how they worked and stuff before we had the 5-gun set like we do now and some of the training dummy with ammunition and all that. He had all that cool stuff right in there. So a lot of fun, fond memories. When he passed on, I hated seeing that little gun shop close up as well, because that was the hub for all the duck hunters and deer hunters and all that type of stuff throughout, but made a huge impact. I remember after taking that test, sweating. Did I pass? Did I not pass?
It's a cruel.
Did you pass?
It's a cruel moment between taking the test and then correcting the test. That you have to wait that 10, 15 minutes. It's not an easy 10 or 15 minutes.
No. Now, I will say, when we went to the trap range to do a little shooting, it actually was a kind of a mixed gun range. There wasn't actually a trap field there, but there was a trap house. And then we used a hand thrower to throw the clay birds. And then we also had a spot where you could shoot some 22s, and somebody brought their deer rifle. And we watched a couple of water-filled milk jugs explode, which was pretty impressive.
Always a crowd pleaser.
Mm-hmm. But we have changed a little bit on that. That's where I found out on the Blue Rock range that I was left eye dominant. And back in the day, the most commonly given advice for someone that was right-handed but left eye dominant was close your left eye. And I received that little bit of instruction. And I was a terrible wing shooter for I don't know how many years after that because of it. Close, all right, I got it closed now. Now I'm aiming. Here we go. And
where'd the bird go?
It was kind of I think we got 5 or 6 shots at that Blue Rock, and they just said, you might be a rifle hunter. Have you thought of archery? But anyhow, lots of fun, lots of good things. But also, think of some of the others. We mentioned some of the Hunter Ed instructors we have now, some of the mentors that you're getting to work with quite closely, Kyle. There's other Hunter Ed instructors that have had impacts on our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Well.
Absolutely. In fact, even in our jobs, we've had instructors who had huge impacts on our lives. And sometimes I think these guys and gals, they see us as the ones managing the program. So they feel like, well, we're the ones, probably, having the impacts, but they have huge impacts on our lives. Over the 25-year career I've learned so much from these guys and gals. Every one of them has something different that they do or something they bring to the table, or just a perspective that I don't have, that I walked away going, that's a cool perspective. But, the one reason people volunteer is because they're passionate about something. I don't volunteer to teach kids to, quilt, and make quilts. I don't care about that. That doesn't have any impact on me whatsoever. I volunteer to teach kids hunting, shooting, fishing, outdoor type things. Those things I'm passionate about, and that's where our volunteers are. And because they're passionate about it, they're probably pretty good at it. They probably bring something to the table that the average person doesn't bring to the table. And I can just list off name after name of some of those. Sometimes it's just an attitude. We all know that the Kevin Marks of the world, that when they show up, they're just fun. You're going to have a good time. You're going to enjoy having them there. Others, it's, organizational skills, whatever, but they all bring something to the table. And so I've learned a ton. I've had some of the best teachers in the world. People talk about having that one great grandpa that taught them all these skills or whatnot. Man, that was what a profound. I've had hundreds of great grandpas over the years teaching me things that I've latched onto.
Excellent point.
The thing I like to add, kind of going back to some of your team atmosphere that Turpin involved in there, most of these classes are taught by a team of different instructors. And on there, I feel like there's always just that one instructor there who has,
the leader,
seen, you feel like everything, who has experienced so much. I know one that has a class going on just because I was a game warden in that area, but Vronsky, I found out he's in his 90s and he's still helping teach the class.
I hope I can still help teach when I'm in my 90s.
He has a team of,
I'm alive.
But below him, there's usually a team of about 8 or 9 instructors that help him teach the class. Yeah. Not because he necessarily needs them, but because he's done so well, shared, I think, wisdom to help bring in the other people in the community to actually help teach the class.
Yeah.
And so it's just always kind of cool to hear them, and then the amount of stories.
Yeah.
If you let them come in and you leave your door open too long, you'll be you can spend hours in there talking to them about different things, which is great to have in. Sometimes not always great to get anything done, but it's always great to kind of hear all the different wisdom from these people. Because, like I said, them or Bober's doing it for over 50 years, and everyone else, I just take in, try to learn as much as I can from a lot of these instructors who have seen a lot more, who've been teaching probably for longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, and they know stuff. They know a lot more a lot of times. Yeah, and I think that's the right attitude, because they have so much to share and bring to the table. But, sometimes it's just having that person that you go, man, this guy's, he's serious about it. He's passionate about this. So I'm serious and passionate about it too. And you see that with other instructors. There's always that one that, he or she is organized, they're passionate, they're serious about this, and it sets a tone for everybody at that class. Yeah. And sometimes just that in itself is the impact.
You bring up teams, and I think that's cool. I think the ones that do last have a group of at least 2, 3, maybe more than that, that they teach with, because it becomes kind of, like you said, a family, and helps on a lot of those different things, because we all don't have all the skills you guys just mentioned. I don't think it's hard sometimes to be the one that has to do all the coordination. There's paperwork that you've got to help out with. There's setting up and advertising the class. There's the teaching this component and that component and all that. And I really do think that team, like you said, becomes a family, and we all bring our experiences. And I know I've taught in 2 different states, and love the instructors in both of them. It's just very similar in their willingness to give back. Hard to lose those team members. We had a father-son team in Iowa that in West Central Iowa, around the Carroll area, that taught bow hunting, because that was part of the overall hunter education requirement there in the state of Iowa. John and Lennis Halbrell, and unfortunately we just lost Lennis a couple of days ago. But you talk about a neat pair that knew what was going on in the archery world, and because John had a bow shop for many years and could bring in some of that equipment as well. But just like you said, it helps bring in some different perspectives. Kevin Huffman was another that actually led that quite a bit. Wonderful person to learn how to teach hunter education under. And we've got, to just list all the people, all the hunter ed instructors that have impacted our lives and have helped make this program go in Nebraska. We'd probably, folks, have 15 minutes of just nothing but names scrolling up and down. So if you get a chance this year at any of our Nebraska Game and Parks events, Cornhusker State Trap Shoot going on this weekend, or just after we got this edited, One way or the
Expo.
other. There you go. We got Kearney Expo. You'll see some Hunter Education banners out there celebrating the 50th. And what's kind of cool on that banner, if you look at the bricks, because it is definitely built the foundation for safe, ethical, and responsible hunting here in the state of Nebraska. Look at each of those bricks, because what do they have on them, Kyle?
They have the list of every instructor that's ever taught Hunter Ed in Nebraska. So it has over
cool.
about 5,000 names from when I was being told. So there's a lot of names on there. Might have to get out your glasses to magnifying glass to read them all. But
You do.
We have them all on there.
But it's been cool. The few places that we've had those banners up already, instructors are flocking around that banner looking for their name, and sure enough, they find their name. And one thing that's always interesting to me, and I've told you guys about this before, but it's an observation I've made over the years, because there's going to be a lot of things we do in life as a volunteer. We volunteer for this and that and the other thing. But, you know, I always say that when somebody passes, what they list in their eulogy, or what's in their eulogy, or what you read in the newspaper, is what was probably most important to them, because that's what your family draws out. You know, they sit there, and when somebody passes, they go through, you know, gosh, what was Dad all about? What did he do? And all these things, you know, he did this and that. But you're going to put the things that you know are most important to Dad, or most important to Uncle, or whoever the case may be. And it's never surprising to me anymore. It maybe was early on, that you would read that so and so had, you know, military, was in a military career, and he served on the, you know, DAV, you know, whatever, and was a Hunter Education Instructor in their community. And it always impacts me, because you know that, you know, all the nights teaching classes, all the nights being away from home, you know, doing a class, setting up for a class. Back in the old days, having to haul TVs to the place to set up for class and whatnot. You know, it meant something to them. It was important to them. And it was so important to them, their family picked up on it too. It was the thing that, you know, we're not going to complain about Dad doing this because this is important. You can tell it's important to him, or Mom, or whoever. And when they list it like that, you go, man, that says something about the program, and it says something about the people we have in the program too. But it just makes me proud. It makes me so proud when I see those, and you mourn the loss of a fallen brother, fallen sister when it comes to the program. But you're so proud that they thought it was, or their family saw it as so important that that's defined who they were, and that's who our people are. It really does define them a little bit.
Well, we're kind of coming to the end of this one. We'll talk more Hunter Education and instructors in the weeks to come, as we build up to the big finale of an event for Hunter Ed instructors and those tied to the program and all that good stuff. But this is a perfect example why, we've got some new options, new opportunities, because life's gotten busier and we learn different ways. But this is why our volunteer instructors in states like Nebraska and across the U.S. are still so darn important, because we remember a lot of those impacts that those individuals made, not just the individuals, but what they stood for and how they helped shaped our lives and our hobbies and all that type of stuff. But I think we're going to have to put a fork in it, on a bow on it right now. So folks, we appreciate you being out there. Make sure you give us a thumbs up, a like, whatever you need to do, subscribe, anything to know when each one of these gets posted and dropped online. But until next time, we'll see you outdoors.
Hunt Nebraska, brought to you by your Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.